Well, we've just had another week and another episode of The Bad Batch Season 3, and yet the epic conclusion of the show is finally coming closer. And closer each and every day. And week. As of right now, we're coming up, I think it's going to be 16 episodes like the other two seasons. At the moment, precisely, Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, Echo, and Rampart have managed to make their way to Tantiss aboard a bit of a locking on. And meanwhile, Omega has been making her plans to escape by the use of basically priming the panels of her cell and then climbing up. But of course, she now only got discovered. Who knows what Hemlock will do when she realises, okay, what he's got on his hands there. A real escape artist, Omega is. But things aren't exactly going well for the Bad Batch. First of all, they managed to get through the atmosphere and detach, but Hemlock knows for a fact the Bad Batch were on the station and got aboard, and dispatches fighters to try and find them. And as the Bad Batch approach, they come under fire from not only the fighters, but also Tantiss' primary anti-air gun. This then forces them to basically fly in a cyclical pattern around the base before having to put down in the jungle. At the same time, Hemlock is making his move, and Echo has boarded the science vessel and is now making his way, well, basically by borrowing some stormtrooper armor to escape the base, along with borrowing the hand of a droid in which he shot. So now he's making his way through the base. Meanwhile, Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, and Rampart have basically, after jumping out the shuttle, but just before it crashed, are now making their way through the jungle, dodging effectively ground squads of TK troopers and their clone commanders in an attempt to evade capture. All the while at the same time, having to make friends with the local wildlife. In this case, a rather particularly angry beast that most likely quite possibly was woken up by Rampart's constant babbling. And Rampart is pretty much a total coward, running and screaming at the side of the creature. And then he runs and he runs and he runs and he runs, causing no end of trouble for Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair as he escapes. The guy is quite literally a coward. Yeah, he's a naval officer and got possibly the perfect Imperial officer, namely the fact that he can't really do much at all. And finally, of all things, Rampart is basically nearly gets them caught. They end up a pretty fun fight, but luckily the large creature that thought the Bad Batch would make a nice lunch has now decided that TK troopers are quite tender too, and probably decides to eat them. Also, throughout much of the episode, Omega finds a series of sample containers after climbing up the shaft, and following it, she gets pretty close. Meanwhile, after gaining access to several different labs and other complexes, Emiere and Echo finally meet. And oddly enough, after Emiere realizes that it's Echo underneath the TK trooper helmet, and says the fact that Omega knew that they were coming, the rest are far behind. Of course, she's got a lot to do. And of course, she tells Echo that she was only doing her job. But Echo says, in fact, you're a clone. And pretty much, I think this is the whole point. And I was right. Emirie's doubts are starting to basically show. Ever since, I think, both the debacle with the stunned boy and the baby, she is now basically developing a conscience, and it is getting to her about what's happened. She can't keep going, and there's not much she can do apart from just keep trying. But it's going to be a very long, hard road, all those concerned. There's nothing stopping her from doing what she's doing, but at the same time, there's very little she can really do. And of course, Emirie's tried to ease her consciousness once, but I think it's getting to the point now, and she even plans to, at least at the moment, just take Echo to Omega. Meanwhile, Echo and her three young friends, Omega actually surprisingly is actually proving to be quite a natural born leader, because she knows for a fact at least three of them want to go home, and she's figured out a way to get them out. After her little escapade up the wall shaft, she's realised there might be a way out. I just hope for a fact that the cavalry arrives when it does. And also, what I've all really liked about the whole thing is the fact, Rampart is a total coward. And basically, the Bad Batch won't stop. Most surprising heel about face is Emiere herself. I was surprised at Emiere throughout much of the episode. I mean, I just thought she was just a scientist who was just going to pop up from time to time. But no, she's actually, over the past few episodes, is actually getting quite a lot of development. I'm surprised at how much development you can get out of such a simple character. I mean, she's got a consciousness developing. She's gotten basically some sort of attachment to at least two of the children, namely an infant, Omega, who was under her supervision during her time at Tantiss, and now finally everything else. And I think also Omega's also gone from plucky wide-eyed kid who basically just enjoys her, thought everything was fun, to clever leader, using her skills, everything she's learned up until now, and is developing quite the leadership streak, to the point where basically she has sort of taken over the surrogate mini matriarch amongst the three kids, to the point where basically they actually hang on her every word. And oddly enough, even the one who probably thinks they just wants to keep her head down, maybe the fact I'll go home at some point, all realizes that, yep, he's going to do it. The Bad Batch are on their way. All she has to do now is figure out a way of actually getting to them and then getting off Tantiss. The first part she has pretty much planned. She thinks she's making up as she goes, but she's doing a very fine job. And the episode ends with her pretty much telling them, I've got a plan. It's going to have to be done quickly. Meanwhile, I think Emiere's immediate deputy is getting a bit fishy of Omega. She doesn't trust Omega as much as Emiere does, which doesn't trust any of the children. And now Emiere might even turn turncoat. It'll be interesting to see how that relationship plays out. And of course, Echo knows for that maybe that's what Omega sees in people. She saw the good in Crosshair. She sees the doubts in Emiere, or at the very least the fact there's something else more there. And now everything's coming to a head. And maybe this is it. Maybe Rex and the rest of his band are on their way, and this is where the rebellion begins. Clones going into separating. Maybe that's the reason why only a few of them survived. Well, I've been the User Channel, so please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheerio!